I and my co-author are going to present a paper on linking ergativity with honorification today. So the table of contents contain objectives, methodology, overview, analysis, discussion, and conclusion. The objective of our paper is to understand the link between ergativity and honorification and then discuss these two phenomena in context of standard Assamese and one of its variety, that is Bajali, and then explore the availability of honorification and the lack of it vis-a-vis ergativity. So, the principal language or the lingua franca of Assam is Assamese, or so what the natives call Ohomia. It is one of the 22 scheduled languages of the Indian Constitution, and this Indo-Aryan language is spoken by almost 15 million people of the country. It uses the Assamese script, that is a variant of the Eastern Nagari script, and Assamese language can be broadly divided into Eastern and Western Assamese. The first printing press being established in Sivsagar by the missionaries, and as they used the Sivsagar district for the literary purposes, the variety that is used in that area was termed as the standard variety of Assamese. And besides Sivsagariya variety, there are very many languages or varieties of languages that are used throughout Assam. And one of the variety that we are going to discuss in this paper is the Bojali variety of Assamese, which is spoken in the Bojali district of Assam, which is a newly formed newly formed 34th district of Assam, that is full-fledgedly formed a district on the 12th of January 2021 by the Assam cabinet. And this district, that is the Bojali district, is carved out of the already existing Borpeta district of Assam. So it has approximately 2.5 speakers, and being a variety, this Bojali dialect variety does not have much linguistic researches so far, and so in order to understand the linguistic features or the phenomena of this variety, we are going to draw generalizations from the already existing literatures of the standard variety of Assamese. Now let's move on to the main topic of today's paper, that is the link between ergativity and honorification. But before doing that, let us understand the two main important morphosyntactic alignments of world's languages, that is the nominative accusative alignment and the ergative absolutive alignment. As stated by Dixon, the languages that treats the intransitive subject as equivalent to the transitive object and different from the transitive objects have nominative accusative alignments, and one such nominative accusative alignment language is English, where we see that the S and A are treated similarly while O is treated otherwise. This can be shown through one of the example, number 1, Raghu killed Ram and Raghu runs, where in examples Raghu killed Ram and Raghu runs, both Raghus in A and B, those are doers of the action, and that is why they are treated similarly. On the other hand, to understand ergativity, let's see what ergativity is. Ergativity occurs when an intransitive subject is treated in the same manner as the transitive object and differently from the intransitive subject, as stated by Dixon in 1994. One of the most prototypical language that shows ergative absolutive alignment is Dirbal, which is an Australian Aboriginal language spoken in the Northeast Queensland, and it has a free word order and also shows traces of split ergativity. Now let's see how ergativity takes place in Dirbal. Numa Yabungu Buran, here the red highlighted morpheme Mu is an ergative marking morpheme in Dirbal, and we also see that Dirbal does not show any agreement morphology in its verbal domain. Besides Dirbal and other languages, we have ergativity in South Asian languages as well, and one of such languages Hindi, where we have traces of ergative absolutive alignment. We can see this through one of the example, Ram ne Ravan ko mara, where ne, that is the red marked morpheme, is an ergative case marker morpheme, and the blue mark, that is the accusative marking morpheme, indicating that this language has traces of both the alignments, that is nominative accusative and ergative absolutive, making this language a split ergative language. And besides Hindi, we have some other Indic languages, that is the West Indo-Aryan languages, that is Haryanvi, Mewati and Mewari, where we also have traces of ergative case marking. So now moving to the main part of today's paper, that is the ergativity in standard Assamese. So standard Assamese also shows traces of ergative absolutive alignment. We can see this through example number 7, where we see Raghu and Rajuk Marile, where A is an ergative case marking morpheme and Ka is an accusative marking morpheme, indicating that, like Hindi, Assamese, standard Assamese is also a split ergative language. So we see that the ergative marking here is A, and the Assamese, standard Assamese is a split ergative language, and the split ergativity that we see here is animacy hierarchy based and not stem split, just like Hindi, like Hindi. And ergativity in standard Assamese is manifested in the second person plural and third person plural and singular, that we can see in true examples 8 and 9. Here we see that Tumaluke Bhat Khala, which is a second person plural, also have ergative case marking, and in the third person Raghu Bhat Khale, which means Raghu ate rice. Here we see that Raghu takes an overt ergative case marking. In some of the common noun examples, we see Manu Gorakia Bhat Khale, which means the woman ate rice. In this example as well, we see that ergative case marking takes place. In example number 11, Tahati Bhat Khale, where E is marked as ergative case marking. So we can say that A and E are both the elomorphs of the same morpheme. Besides the subject, ergativity marking can also be seen in the object position in Assamese. For example, Rame Make Kwamota Kamto Korise, where we see that Ram is a subject and Mark is the object, and Ram is seen with an overt ergative marking, and Mark is also seen with the overt ergative marking. So we can say that it has traces of ergative case marking in subject and object as well. We can see through this table that ergativity in standard Assamese is manifested only in the plural marking in the second person and third person in plural and singular both. Now let's move to the ergative case marking in Bojali. So, being a variety of Assamese, Bojali also manifests some of the similarities like the standard variety, but it, unlike Hindi or the standard Assamese, it only manifests ergativity in the third person. So in example number 14, we see to whom ghot asa, which is a second person example where we do not see any ergative case marking, but in the third person Sita bhat khalak, which means Sita ate rice, it has traces of ergativity. In examples tiri tu bhat khaise or tiri kotai bhat kotha pati ase, here we see that it has traces of ergativity. But in example number 18, there we see a difference where tahun ghor gel, which means they went home. It is a pronominal, and it does not take any ergative case marking. So this is the table where we see that it on ergativity is manifested only in the third person. The rest of the slides I would like to hand over to my co-author to present.
Okay, thank you, Snigdha. With this story about, ergativity in standard Assamese and its Bajali variety, we are moving to the second linguistic phenomenon under consideration for this paper. That is honorification. Honorification is one of the most interesting linguistic phenomena that we should study when we are living in a society which is extremely heterogeneous with multiple layers of honorification. So before moving to honorification in South Asian languages, let's just have a bit of lit review, what linguistics literature says about honorification. Primarily, this is a linguistic category that is used to denote social relationships which involve social status, respect, and difference in the communicative interactants. That means I would like to pay a bit of attention to the term communicative interactants. That is that gives us an idea that it depends who the speaker and who the receiver is. So when the speaker is lower in the social status or in the maybe the age group or the familiarity, so in these contexts we are trying to understand that, or we would make sure that the honorification level remains lower. When the other person is having a better position in the society, then the honorification is going to be higher. So that is what Aga 2003 and then Bhatt 2014 would posit it as an interplay of respect, familiarity, and formality. All of these are the demographic details which would be a part of it when we are trying to understand honorification as a linguistic phenomenon. The familial relationships would come into play. Generally, the communication between the siblings would bring in the lower level of honorificity, and generally with the parents, especially the male parent, like the father, is given the high honorific status, whereas the mother is given the lower level of honorific status. Since we stay in a society which is extremely layering, or which is extremely complex and heterogeneous, honorificity is an interesting phenomenon to study, not only from the theoretical, generative syntactic perspective, but also from the pragmatic discourse perspective. And honorific markings in our languages, these are the direct grammatical encodings of relative social status, as has been mentioned here. And then when we are trying to understand honorification from the theoretical understanding of linguistics, we get an idea that there is hardly any direct relation between the grammaticalized honorific form and the pre-existing social status. That means, just like the example that I have given you, even if it's parents, one parent would be addressed with high honorific, the other parent is going to be addressed with the low honorific. So the social state, like the pre-existing social status, hardly has to do anything when the honorific marking is concerned. Okay, so with this information, let's quickly go over to the honorification CIILs of the South Asian languages. Most of our languages are multi-layered as far as the honorification is concerned. For example, Punjabi, we would have 2 levels of honorification in the pronominal subject. That is tu and pussy. Tu is going to be non-honorific and pussy would be honorific. In Odia, on the other hand, Odia is my native tongue, so which is why we would have a couple of examples from Odia too. We would have 4 levels, and otherwise in Hindi, which would allow 3 levels, generally found in most of the Indian languages, or most of the South Asian languages would have 3 levels of honorification, barring a couple of them, like especially the Austroasiatic languages. They do not show honorificity at all. For example, Khadiya, which is a language spoken in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and West Bengal, Odisha border. So there we do not have any trace of honorification at all. So typology of honorification is an interesting phenomenon to understand when we look at it from South Asian languages perspective. A couple of examples I would just like to cite from Odia. I'll start it from a mid-honorific. As I mentioned, Odia has 4 levels of honorification. So the mid-honorific would bring in something like aparna, which is you mid-honorific, and there is a trigger in the agreement. So it is going to be khaile, you ate mango. So kha is the verb root, e is going to the aspect marker, la is the tense marker, and a is the agreement. So this is second person high honorific and perfective marker for the mid-honorific. That is like aapne aam khaya or something like that. And then plain honorific we have. Generally we use it for the colleagues, friends, and senior students in a semi-formal kind of a discourse where the pronominal is going to be tume, that is honorific. And then again, if you compare, the previous agreement was khaile, and now with the honorific tume, this is khai law. So a changes to a in terms of the agreement marking aspect, and tense that remains same. Then the next slide would talk about the non-honorific form. The non-honorific form in Odia would be used for people, again, as I mentioned, either the lower strata of the society, or you are familiar with the person is younger than you. So when the addressee is younger or socially weaker, we are using the non-honorific form in Odia. So this is going to be tu ambo khailu. So tu is the non-honorific form, and the agreement changes to u. Interestingly, the 4th category, which since I mentioned the 4 categories or the 4 layerings of honorification, the 4th one is super interesting. Why? Because this is generally found at a particular place, and it is limited to the Puri dialect, and we find it in the religious setting, especially in the Jagannath temple, where you do not really have the active construction. So when I say we would offer offerings to Lord Jagannath, instead of saying instead of mentioning it in the active form, we bring in the passive version of it. So we say Jagannatha bhogalagi hele. We don't say that the priest offered offerings to Jagannath. Rather, Lord Jagannath was offered the offering. So this is used only for the deities in the temple, and this particular variety or this particular dialect is only available in the temple discourse, and this is culturally exclusive to press and then the temple workers. The another interesting thing that I would like to highlight, even if it's a temple language or even if it's a temple dialect, we do not really see that in other parts of this. This is about the diversified story of the honorification. Yeah, so Snigdha will take up the linking. Yeah, Snigdha will take up the link between honorificity and ergativity now. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So now let us talk about the honorification in the standard Assamese. Honorification, like in Hindi or in Odia, standard Assamese also have 3 levels. Like in Hindi, it has 3 levels in the second person. In the non-honorific, we see it is used with colleagues or with friends or with lower status people or something someone who are younger to us. And in honorifics we use the terms with people with same age, and in high honorifics, like man mentioned, we use it with the people with higher status or with aged people. So the non-honorifics are toy, tohoti, and the agreement marker with is o, and the honorifics we have tumi, tumaluke, and the agreement marker is a, and the high honorifics have apuni, apunaluke, and the agreement marker along with this a. So this can be seen with some of the examples in non-honorific, that is toy kam koriso, tohoti kam koriso. There these are the non-honorific examples. And then the honorific examples, tumi kam korisa and tumaloke kam korisa shows honorific examples, and highly honorifics has examples like to apuni kam korise or apunaloke kam korise, which has the agreement markers as I mentioned earlier. But in honorification, in third person, we only have three levels, that is non-honorific and high honorific. In non-honorific, we have he, tai, which means he, she. In high honorific, we have teo or teo, which means he, she. In plural markers, in honorific, we have hihoti, tahati, which means they. And in honorific, we have teoluke, which means they. And the classifiers in non-honorific are tu and joni, and the high honorific are John, Jona, and Goraki. The honorification in standard Assamese in non-honorific are he kam korise and hihoti kam korise. And the high honorifics are teo kam korise and teoluke kam korise. And in non-honorific, we have manutue kam korise and manujoniye kam korise. There we see the difference. In manu tu, tu is a non-honorific marker and joni is a non-honorific marker. And in the previous example, teo. And in the next example, we have manu gorakie or manu ke gorakie. This is the high honorific classifiers that shows honorification. And honorification in Bojali behaves quite differently from that of the other languages, because it shows it does not show an honorification at all. So we can say that it lacks it completely. It has only one level of honorification, that is the non-honorific, which can be manifested in the second person and third person. That is, in second person we have toy and tuhun, and in third person we have he, tai, or tahun. So in example, in second person we have toy kam kossa and tuhun kam kossa, and in the third person pronominals we have he kam kossi and tahun kam kossi. But in common nominals, we see that ergativity takes place in the common nominals, unlike the other examples that I've mentioned. So through this paper, we see that the standard variety does not have ergativity in the first person, but it is noticed in the second person plurals and third person proper nouns and common nouns, and also in the plural forms. Ergativity is absent in the singular pronominals in the language, and Bojali, like the standard variety, lacks ergativity in the second person and the first person, and only manifested in the third person. And the presence of the ergative case marking sometimes in some constructions gives an assertive reading, and the absence of it gives an imperative reading. The standard variety shows honorification in the three levels, whereas the Bojali variety lacks it completely. So I would like to complete this paper by saying that in spite of the Bojali variety lacking honorification in all the agreement domains, ergativity is manifested in most of the three-person nominals. Unlike other languages, ergativity does not block honorification in Assamese at all, and the link between ergativity and honorification should be explored or might be explored, and to be explored further to understand the blocking phenomena in this language or in the two varieties of Assamese. And I would like to conclude this paper by positing a question: is ergativity in Bojali a typologically unique feature? So these are my references. Thank you.
Yeah, I was in the other session, so I missed part of your lecture. So you said that ergativity blocks honorificity, or ergativity is a manifestation of honorificity?
So we are saying ergativity blocks honorification. So especially in languages like Hindi, when we say...
No, I have given the passive example of Jagannath.
Yeah.
There I joined you. But in what way does ergativity block honorificity? It's a very unique contribution you are making, if it is correct.
Yeah. So sir, my pilot study shows something like this. When we have constructions like aapne khana khaya, so it goes to the default marking. But on the other hand, if you ask a question, aap khana khaye kya? So when we say aap khana khaye kya?
No, that is not standard Hindi. No, Anindita,
Yes,
That is
sir.
not part of standard Hindi. Either you stick to standard Hindi or you stick to the what you call the Eastern variety of Hindi.
Okay.
Then you can say, "Aap khaye hain kya?" Yes, wonderful. There is no honorificity or non-honorificity involved at all. And if you say, "Kya tune khana khaya? Kya tumne khana khaya? Kya aapne khana
Reduce to
khaya?"
the default.
I just don't see any difference between these, and I don't know how you are linking this to honorificity. That's my question. And even the Assamese examples, ergative marker is optional. The so-called ergative
That's a
marker
split
in
ergativity. That's
Assamese
what's
is optional. Am I right,
Yes.
Krishna?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. It's a split ergative.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. It shows split ergative feature.
What I said is ergative marker in Assamese is optional. Am I right or wrong? Standard Assamese.
Yeah. It's not optional in all the constructions. It is manifested in the second person plural and the third person singular and plural in both.
Obligatorily?
No, it's not obligatory, but it is
So that's
used in
what
some
I'm
of the
saying. It's
constructions.
not obligatory, means it's optional. Right?
Yes.
I still don't know how you are linking ergativity to honorificity. That's my basic question, and we can maybe
Yeah.
discuss it sometime later.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So probably we are maybe if we stick to the standard Hindi thing, then aap khana
Either you
khaye
stick
kya?
to standard Hindi or you stick to Eastern Hindi.
Eastern Hindi.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you cannot confuse these two things or mix up these two things and say, well, it's there like this, is like this here. No. I'm sorry, I missed your talk in the beginning because I was in that.
No, sir. It was primarily.
Thank you very much. Of course, I was also wondering, there you are going to link ergativity, honorification, anyhow. All right, but you made an attempt, of course, thanks to Professor Subrao to discuss in this occasion. Thanks actually to the presenters.